Da-da-da. Uh-oh. Hello. Damn it. Oh boy. Oh boy. Can I even hit it? No, I missed. But watch this. That never gets old. And what about this? Okay, there's a Hellcat. That's a one-shot. Pardon me, please? Okay, that's not okay. Hey, Gaijin, this is not funny, right? Okay. Does this gun even work? Yep, it does. Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. Yes, it's been a while, but I'm back. Not just on YouTube, but also playing tanks in War Thunder. And I wanted to start with the ARL 44, which is a fantastic French rank 3, battle rating 5.3, tech 3 heavy tank. Oh, sorry, I meant tank destroyer. Yes, because it plays like a heavy tank, smells like a heavy tank, and tastes like a heavy tank. But in fact, in War Thunder, it's called a tank destroyer. And the confusion is there because when you look at the tank, you know, it looks like an odd hybrid between somewhere a Churchill and a Tiger II-H. And also it has the gun of a much higher battle rating medium tank, the AMX M4, but without the reload buff from the autoloader, but still the same round, which is quite devastating for this battle rating. So first things first, I absolutely had a lot of fun playing this tank, but also some moments of frustration, and I think it's quite interesting to talk you through. So first of all, this tank is a really interesting combination of mobility, armor and firepower, and I actually thought that this tank is so good for what it shows you on paper that it was really worth trying out playing it again. And also I wanted to research the M36B2 with it, which I hadn't done so far, so that's the successor in the French tech tree. And also, because this is a tank destroyer, I wanted to play this tank for the Battle Pass challenge Onslaught of the Hetairoi. Weird name, but basically what I had to do was to get 20,000 mission score in Tank RP, where I had to finish the mission in a tank destroyer and not necessarily start in it, but you know, I played from start to finish in the first place in a given vehicle type. So that means that I was playing this tank for 2 days basically, and I had a lot of fun. It has to do with the 90mm SA-45 cannon, 37 rounds of ammunition, and you basically have a 10-second reload if you have a fully trained ace crew. And you have two types of ammunition: the HE round, 13mm of penetration, not that spectacular, but the 90mm obus de rupture, I hope I pronounced this correctly, is an APC round, so a solid shot, and it's the same as on the 6.7 tank. Now, this shell is really interesting because it makes no sense. Compare this to the German Long 88. It goes with the same muzzle velocity, 1,000 meters per second. It has a projectile mass of 10.6 kilograms, but then it has 215 millimeters of penetration and no explosive charge inside. And then you go to the German Long 88. Let's take for example the Panzergranate 39-43. It goes also at 1,000 meters per second, so same muzzle velocity, but is lighter with 10.16 kilograms, so that's roughly half a kilogram less. Has in its cavity a TNT equivalent bursting charge of 109 grams and has yet more penetration with 237. Is it because it has better capping with the APCBC style? I don't know. Is it better optimized? I guess so. And in War Thunder terms, you know, you have with this gun a faster reload, you have more penetration and better post-penetration damage effect. But most of the Long 88s are mounted on vehicles with higher battle ratings. Back to the ARL 44. And this is really interesting because, yes, I had some moments with this shell where it just was really frustrating. But overall, it had a really good performance, it had a really good post-penetration damage spalling effect, and this brings me actually to the introduction of the entire French tech tree for the first time into War Thunder, where we also saw this vehicle. And basically what happened was that Gaijin, before everything was introduced, had a look at the performance of solid shots in War Thunder and basically their spalling effect after the penetration. And then they changed, well, this is not really satisfying so far, we should do something for it, because new tech tree, it must be fun to play, so we draw all the new players in, sell our premium packages, yada yada yada. And that was when the British were really pissed off, because so far the British were the nation that mainly used at the Roundless battle rating, lower and higher as well, almost exclusively solid shot, and they complained for quite a while about the bad spalling effect. And you could say, well, that spalling should be a little bit of a balancing factor, because APHE rounds have almost no spalling effect, but have a huge post-penetration damage effect when the shell goes off inside of the tank. If you basically get an APHE round inside of a tank, doesn't really matter how small the shell is, it almost always one-shots the crew. And this is where the AP rounds just didn't work that well, and very often, quite famously, really frustrating, because the enemy tank, you couldn't kill it in time, and then it just turned around and one-shot to you. That was the British experience. And for the French, it was a little bit different. Well, for numerous reasons. First of all, they had overall much quicker tanks, and then tanks with faster reload. But here is where this tank destroyer has a problem with its 10-second reload. Again, if you knock out only the driver or the gunner or both, you don't reload in time if the enemy has the appropriate crew skills, and they get back the driver, the gunner, or both into position before you reload, and then they either return fire or go back into cover, or in the worst case scenario, both. So yeah, this can be a little bit of a problem in a city fight. On the other hand, when you have an enemy tank and you pen it frontally with a central shot, then in this tank, in that case, you very often one-shot them. Now, then let's talk about the gun handling. Because you have a turret as a tank destroyer, so you almost feel like a Hellcat, a little bit of an acceleration, but you get the idea. 5 degrees of gun depression, 20 degrees of gun elevation, and then you have the turret rotation speed of 24 degrees per second and gun elevation speed of 4 degrees per second. So really, overall, really okay values for especially this battle rating. So, great tank. Then there is the survivability, and that is a little bit of a mixed bag, because when you get penetrate through the frontal plate of the hull, you almost always blow up, because if you take full ammunition, because the ammunition is standing upright and almost impossible to miss. And also in the back of the turret there are also a lot of shells. Now you could take out a third of the ammunition and then there's nothing in the hull, but then you also can run through a lot of ammunition at range, in certain engagements when your shell is not really performing that well. So then you also have 5 crew members. That means if somebody kills your turret crew but doesn't ignite the ammunition, you still have 2 crew in the hull of the tank, and you can recover. And that happened to me quite often, so it's not a fluke. Then there is the mobility. We have a 600 horsepower engine for a 50-ton tank. Now that doesn't really sound all that great. And it isn't. But it feels better than the horsepower to ton ratio would suggest. So you almost feel limited by the top speed of 37 km per hour, and the minus 8 km per hour in reverse are also not that great, but they are not terrible, right? It's better than 3.7 to make that old joke. And then there is the armor. And the armor is quite funny, because the upper frontal plate is a 120mm rolled homogeneous armor at 48 degrees of constructional placement, and that gives you an effective line of sight of somewhere between 160 and 170 millimeter. And that means, because it's so heavily angled, it's really difficult for a Panther to pen it, but a long 88 might just go through. The lower glacis is 50mm, 60 degrees angles of attack, but that is a potential weak spot. Basically in the range of a T-34-85's hull lower front plate. Turret face is cast homogeneous armor with only 110mm of thickness, and it's relatively prominent and I think much bigger in terms of hitting area than the turret face of, for example, a Tiger II-H. And then there is the gun mantlet, which is only 66mm, and behind there is nothing but the gun breech. So there is that. And don't angle this tank too much, because the side of the turret is really thin with only 30mm, and so the rear of the turret. And the side plating of this tank, well, there is a frame of 60mm where the tracks go, and then where the tracks are actually having their armor, it's somewhere between 50 and 30mm with nothing behind this, so that's quite something. Overall, this tank in the frontal engagement is quite fun. The gun has some real punch, the mobility is better than you would expect, and I absolutely love it. And I hope you enjoyed this video, so let me know in the comment section, and I promise to make more videos in the future. That's it for me today, so thanks for watching, thanks for listening, please give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the waves, in the skies, on the battlefields of War Thunder.